Now we move on with the first panel presentation by Reverend Father Jose Nandhikkara CMI, a friend of mine. We have been associated for decades now. And Father Jose, having been trained at Dharmaram, at Oxford and Warwick, and not to forget Gregorian University, I think is the right person to start the conversation, and he will speak to us on philosophical training at the service of the gospel. Gospel is at the center, but Father Jose, now being a professor of philosophy, I'm sure that he will be able to connect both together. Over to you, Father Jose, for an interesting time.
Thank you very much, Sister Navya, for the kind words of introduction and welcome. Thank you, Father Saju and the organizers for the kind invitation to share my views on ecclesiastical education, particularly on philosophical education. I hope I'm audible and my PowerPoint is visible.
Yes, please.
So I titled the presentation as Philosophical Education at the Service of the Gospel. I'm trying to connect two thoughts of Pope Francis: Veritatis Gaudium, the joy of truth, and Evangelii Gaudium, the joy of the gospel. So the joy of the gospel is integral to the joy of truth. And to the joy of the truth is integral to the gospel. The good news is the truth liberates and gives us the joy. Let me begin, dear sisters and brothers, and the distinguished panelists and the audience, with the first sentence from St. John Paul II's encyclical Fides et Ratio, Faith and Reason. Faith and reason are like two wings on which the human spirit rises to the contemplation of truth. And God has placed in the human heart a desire to know the truth. That's human nature. We are by nature, by God's providence, we are truth seekers. And by knowing and loving God, men and women may also come to the fullness of truth about themselves. Today, we would add about the nature and the material world. This is the Apostolic Constitution on Ecclesiastical Education by Pope Francis. The purpose of ecclesiastical education is to carry out the ministry of evangelization given to the church by Christ. Whether it is philosophy, theology, canon law, and other allied subjects, the purpose is evangelization at the service of the gospel, to bring the joy of the gospel, to offer opportunities and processes for the suitable formation of priests, consecrated men and women, and committed lay people, meaning all Christians. We are invited and called by the Pope through education to bring the gospel to the world, through scientific research to cultivate and promote in ecclesiastical disciplines, to serve the mission of the church. And the mission of the church is to bring the joy of the gospel, to deepen knowledge of the Christian revelation and of matters connected with it, to present them to the people of the present day in a manner adapted to various cultures. And the last point, I would consider the philosophy has a greater foundational role to present the Christian revelation and of matters connected with it to the people of the present day in a manner adapted to various cultures. As truth seekers, I largely divide our truth seeking into three disciplines: physics, which considers all the physical sciences, which Aristotle called Ancilla Philosophia, handmaid or helper to philosophy. What does science do? Science examines and explains everything from a physical point of view, from a material point of view, based on observation and experiments. Scientific propositions must be tested, at least testable, and they are either verified or falsified. They are the best explanation for the time being for the physical world. They change. And philosophy, especially in the medieval ages, and I would consider today also, Ancilla Theologia. It is the handmaid of theology. Sometimes we consider handmaid or helper as something below the standard. Not really. If I'm helping you, if at all I'm a superior, whatever way. Even including our cooks and drivers, when they help us, we must be grateful. So theology needs the philosophy. Philosophy investigates everything from human points of view. In that respect, it is an anthropological human perspective, and all the humanities would come under it. We are dealing with philosophy, and especially my role. Aquinas long back, he wrote, the study of philosophy has as its purpose to know not what people have thought, but rather the truth about the way things are, the truth about the reality of God, fellow human beings, oneself, and the nature. Philosophy has interest on all subjects from a human point of view. We do not have a neutral point of view. We are not looking from the physical, material point of view. We are looking from the human point of view. And theology, let me propose, Ancilla Vita Consecrata. It is the handmaid, it is the help for consecrated life. By consecrated life, we are ministers of the gospel. And we need physical sciences, social sciences, humanities, and particularly my interest now, philosophy and theology. Theology explores everything from God's point of view, based on scriptures. So theology, the word is God talk. It is the God talk, which is the revelation, and it is also human beings talking on God, and other beings and other realities in relation to God. In philosophy, everything from a human point of view. God, fellow human beings, nature, the material world, everything from a human point of view. In theology, the God and human beings and the nature from the divine point of view. And in these explorations in truth seeking, we have the three methods. We argue, we make conclusions. There are three kinds of arguments. One is demonstrative arguments, that you show, takes as its premises propositions that explain the fact in the argument's conclusion by elucidating its causes. It could be deduction or injection, but you are shown the data. And all rational beings, or the majority of them, would agree. That's the major difference. In the scientific one, because they are tested and testable, all people who are rational would largely agree. But that's only for the material point of view and for mathematical or logical conclusion. But human life is based on probable arguments, which are accepted widely by experts in the relevant field. We persuade others by the power of rationality, logic, systematicity for an argument. This is true also in economics or political sciences and any humanities, but more strongly in philosophy. An authoritative argument takes its premises from revealed truth, truth which is accepted. So it premises, as far as a Christian, the Holy Bible is the revealed truth, and we do not doubt it. We only ask questions to understand, interpret, and make it practical in our lives. And all these three, demonstrative, probable, and authoritative argument, helps us to have systematic, critical, and creative thoughts to form perspectives and standpoints. So all our truth seekers is for certain vision and certain mission, perspectives, a life vision, a world vision, and standpoints on issues we do. We seek, what is it? And then we ask, so what? What difference does it make? And thirdly, now what? In philosophy, this could be explained from a Kantian epistemology. Father Saju is an expert in it. The transcendental aesthetics, transcendental analytics, transcendental dialectics. But in simple words, the first level of knowledge is information. We learn from others. The second level is interpretation. Whether it is scientific or philosophical or theological, we interpret. And third one, we dialectics, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Thereby, we adapt the truth for the present. In philosophical investigation, we could largely see three paradigms. We have only very limited time. The first paradigm, let me draw your attention to the last line. We ask the question, what is it? It's an objective one. At that time, there was not such a difference between physics and philosophy. Science was considered, or the empirical sciences were considered as natural philosophy. With modern philosophy, the turn was more subjective and epistemological. The question is, what do I know, or what do we know? Now, in the 20th century, it is a linguistic and semantic turn in philosophy. What do I mean? What do we mean? What do we mean by education? What do we mean by truth? What do we mean by when we say we are truth seekers? If there is time and during the discussions, we can continue about these three paradigms. Science and philosophy are integrally connected. I started with saying Aristotle was physicist and philosopher. He considered himself a philosopher, but his book was, first he wrote physics, then he wrote metaphysics. Therefore, Aristotle, if there is a history of physics, they would start with Aristotle. So modern sciences grew from philosophical roots. Physics and biology are descendants of metaphysics, the most general features of reality. Psychology descends from the philosophical reflection on mind. So the history of psychology should start with their anima of Aristotle. And today's computer science stems from philosophy's interest in logic. Boolean logic is all that is applicable in the internet language. So Aristotle and numerous Greek philosophers were both philosophers and scientists. Many of the philosophers, Descartes, Kant, Leibniz, Russell, Wittgenstein, were mathematicians. Newton and Einstein had great philosophical interest. All that is scientific have philosophical, and particularly today I would consider ethics as the first philosophy, ethical significance. And all that is human have scientific and philosophical significance. How science and theology connected? Philosophy, Ancilla Philosophia. Philosophy, most fundamental and general. It gives the foundations. It gives the grammar for a theological language, theological explorations. Science is also equally connected with theology. Science explains events in terms of physical process. Theology takes, they can be fully explained only when we see them in relation to God as the first cause and as the final cause. They are teleological. We ask the question, science cannot ask the question, what is the purpose of it? Their purpose would be only the temporal one. But the ultimate purpose of the creation, for that we need theology. So Summa contra Gentilis of Aquinas speaks, same effect is ascribed to natural cause and to God. So same effect, for example, corona. There will be a scientific explanation. There is also theological interpretation. We can explain natural events in terms of natural causes without having to abandon our belief in God's providence and governance of the world. Sometimes we have a thought that the contemporary world are non-believers. No, 70 to 80% of them consider them they are believers. Or most of the scientists are also believers. These science, philosophy, theology, they are distinct but not separate. They are not independent nor opposite. They are interdependent in human life. So what do we need to do? Find similarities and differences. We need for our life as a human being, life as a Christian, life as a consecrated person, we need sciences and humanities, particularly philosophy and theology. Just as grace builds on nature and brings it to fulfillment, so faith builds upon and perfects reason. Faith and reason are like two wings. In the encyclical Letter Fides et Ratio, he says, in fact, philosophy is directly concerned with asking the question of life's meaning and sketching an answer to it. So philosopher's interest is particularly with meaning of life. And they affirm meaning of life is not given by the facts of the world. Propositions of natural science are not sufficient to give us meaning for life. Why do I do what I do now? Where do I come from? Where do I go? What is the purpose of my life? There we have philosophical investigation. This question regarding the meaning of life arises both from the wonder that man experiences in his encounter with others and with the cosmos, and from the painful and tragic experiences that assail his life. Philosophical knowledge is seen as being one of the noblest of human tasks. So, my dear sisters and brothers, my humble and hearty invitation to the world of philosophy. All human beings desire to know. Aristotle wrote in Metaphysics, that's the human nature. And truth is the proper object of this desire. It begins with a question, how I wonder what you are. There is a certain curiosity, wonder, and confusion, and we want to know. And we are also equally believers. We are believers and truth seekers. We start with believing. Pope writes, people cannot be genuinely indifferent to the question of whether what they know is true or not. Pope, systematically and specifically continues to, in a way, condemn fideism, literalism, biblicism, historicism, fundamentalism. If we have time, we will deal with it later. And equally, one cannot personally verify all that one believes to be true, whether it is scientific, philosophical, or theological. One, we cannot be indifferent whether what I believe is true or not. Second, we cannot personally verify all that we believe, whether they are true. I conclude now quoting Pope Benedict XVI in his Caritas in Veritate. From a Christian perspective, truth cannot be separated from love. On the one hand, the defense and promotion of truth are an essential form of charity. So when we speak truth, we are practicing love. To defend the truth, I would ask to explain the truth, to inform the truth, to interpret the truth, to articulate it with humility and conviction, and to bear witness to it in life. This is our gospel witness, are therefore exacting and indispensable form of charity. Truth is the light that gives meaning and value to charity. There are only two fundamental values, truth and love. Truth liberates, love binds. And today we need true love. Truth means more than knowledge or information. The purpose of knowing the truth is to know what is good. This is also the meaning of Socratic inquiry. What is good? That which makes us true. The truth makes us good, and the good is true. By offering an organic vision of knowledge that is not separated from love, philosophy can make a specific contribution of her own. Philosophy has. What is that? One capable of effecting change, including of cultural and social endeavors. So today, to effectively preach and witness to the gospel, philosophical education contributes uniquely to enlarge the area of our rationality, to link theology, philosophy, and science between them in full respect, their autonomy, mutual rights and duties, of their reciprocal autonomy, but also in the awareness of the intrinsic unity that holds them together. So I conclude with the appeal of St. John Paul, Pope John Paul. This is why I make this strong and insistent appeal, not, I trust, untimely, that faith and philosophy recover the profound unity which allows them to stand in harmony with their nature without compromising their mutual autonomy. The parrhesia is openness of faith, must be matched by the boldness of reason. Evangelium Gaudium and Evangelii Gaudium and the Veritatis Gaudium. The gospel, the joy of the gospel, joy of the truth. To serve the gospel, we need truth. And to arrive at the truth, philosophical investigation helps us. It's a great tool, natural to human beings. Thank you very much.